All right, let's go straight into the conversation. Okwe, I don't know whether this is an African thing, but we have countries like Togo where we have the Ngema family. We had Nasime Ngema at some point. His son has taken over. If you look at Central Africa, Equatorial Guinea, for example, we had. Sorry, I think I'm mixing. Iyadema is for Togo. So Iyadema's son is still ruling Togo after his father's demise. Equatorial Guinea, Central Africa, we have the Ngemas there, and we have, cases like Congo, and on and on and on and on. Let's just look at leadership generally. In Nigeria, at some point, there were allegations that one of our leaders was planning to do a third term. I don't know what it is about power. Once people get a hold of it, they don't want to let go. And leadership is a word that, on its own, attracts a lot of responsibility. Even without acting it, the word, when you hear leadership, in your head, you start to break it down. Leadership comes with responsibility, it comes with integrity, it comes with accountability, it comes with transparency, it comes with a whole lot. You understand what I'm talking about? Now, let's just analyze leadership. Let's just analyze leadership first of all, and then we can now narrow down to African leaders.
Okay, so I have a big one. There is a life president in Cameroon, Paul Biya.
Yeah, Paul Biya. I forgot
So,
about
for
that.
context, Paul Biya became the president of Cameroon when Alhaji Shehu Shagari became the president of Nigeria.
So for those in Nigeria, they'll be able to understand.
No, that's the
how
best
far back.
way. So I don't have to describe anything for you.
Else, yes.
Paul Biya was a prime minister in Cameroon until 1975 when
Yeah.
he became president. So Paul Biya is still the president of Cameroon.
True.
There was a disputed election last year that I covered. And there are words that in the entire campaign period last year in Cameroon, Paul Biya was only seen once. In fact, a year prior to the election, there were rumors that it was rushed to France and that he had died. For months, nobody heard anything about him. He was ruling by instruction.
Proxy.
Maybe proxy in this case. I have a friend that is a big lawyer in Cameroon, and we get into that conversation every time. And he says, listen, that each time he looks at Nigerians complaining about development, he's always laughing. That he has visited 80% of Nigeria. And that each time he comes to Nigeria, he tells his friends in Cameroon that you guys should hold on to your country. He says that we have skyscrapers in Nigeria, we have dual roads in Nigeria, we have, beautiful landscape in Nigeria, that we should come to Cameroon. That there was I think maybe 16-kilometer 4-lane bridge that took them 11 years to complete. So he was making that comparison. And one thing that keeps coming to my mind is this. If you have a leader in Cameroon that have been there since Alhaji Shehu Shagari was Nigerian president, then you can put in how many other presidents, how many military coup, how many transition of government Nigeria have had within that period. Let's go to Eswatini. The president in the Eswatini has been there for 16 years. Let's go to the Kingdom of Morocco. See, if you go and check it, the top 10 longest serving leaders or monarchs in the world, 6 of them are Africans. So make do whatever you want to make do with that information. We keep talking about, what's his name now? I'm trying to remember this country that's said to be Rwanda.
Rwanda.
If you look at what is going on there, Kigali has been there for almost 20 years. And there are words that opposition leaders are disappearing. There are rumors that there are, underground sleeper cells where they lock opposition or, journalists that are questioning the democracy of that country. So you start a conversation with, is it an African thing? Yes. There are also leaders around the world that have spent so much time, but it is safer for those sides because development matches the longevity of their leaders. Unlike what we have in Nigeria here, unlike what we have in Africa, thus the longevity of Paul Biya in office, has it translated to development for Cameroonians? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. So the fact that you have leaders in other countries of the world that have spent so many years there, but their development that you can show for it, Look at the Arab nations, for instance. Look at Kuwait, for instance. They're not even practicing democracy. But the democracy we are saying we are practicing in the part of the world, in Africa specifically, is questionable. Look at how many countries within the African Union, within the ECOWAS, that are falling under the military coup. Niger Republic, Burkina Faso, these countries are under the military coup. There was an attempted coup late last year in Benin Republic that Nigeria had to step in because that was too close to us. To have a military operation in Benin Republic is too close to the country. But you cannot blame the people for asking questions from their leaders. Now, Paul Biya recently appointed his son as the vice president and head of the military of the country. Now, look at it everywhere. There was a time in Libya when Gaddafi was the head of Libya that the families of Gaddafi were the ones controlling things. There are countries in this continent of Africa where the leader is the father, the cousin is the minister of finance, this one is the minister of justice, and there's a whole lot of leadership fought in between. So look at what we have on our screen. We have leaders of 40 years, 42 years, 45 years, 41 years. And if you look at the economic situation of those countries, it's a disgrace. So longevity in office does not equate development. You can come in 4 years, come in 5 years, come in 10 years, and do things that a man that has been in office for 60 years, 50 years have not done. There are leaders on the continent of Africa that they cannot even stand on their own to campaign during elections. There are leaders in the continent of Africa, president of African countries, that they've been there for 8 terms, 8, 9, 7. And it's not that they don't do elections. So they do elections. Look at Ivory Coast. But they'll tell you that 96% victory. Sometimes they will do election on the eve of election. The opposition, the leading opposition leaders will be kidnapped. They won't see them on election days. Look at the dispute around the election in Cameroon. Result was delayed for almost 11 days before it was announced. At the end of the day, the judge gave a judgment that Paul Biya won the election. Who appointed the judge?
But it was announced.
It was announced eventually because there was protest.
The 1993 elections in Nigeria, the results were never announced.
It was annulled. I mean, you know that prior to that election, on the eve of the election, there was a kangaroo judgment that prevented that election from going on. But we're talking about African countries where they will go to the polls. The citizens of the country will think that they're exercising their franchise.
Which is what we did in 1993.
Unfortunately, we have a military system of government.
That's what we did.
We're talking about democracy, not even allowing democracy to thrive in Africa.
We're just talking about them generally. Leaders, whether military or democratically elected leaders, I just think that we have a problem in Africa.
It is a leadership problem. And maybe African leaders think that they cannot survive outside of power. Because it's very simple. How do you stay in the same government for 41 years? Are you not tired? Are you not tired?
And then you wonder how the citizens are able to cope. We can even talk here in Nigeria. Of
course.
Do you understand? But it's not as if we don't see these patterns. You know, if Nigerians were just complacent and wouldn't say anything, perhaps we would have been in the same situation.
I will continue to say this, that a third-term agenda in Nigeria cannot work.
It won't work.
And I have my reasons. Nigeria's democracy is very sophisticated. We could have our problems. We could have repression of the press. We could have, opposition voices not speaking out. But Nigeria is very central to Africans' democracy. That if we make that mistake of going into a third term or doing that thing, it alters the course of democracy on the continent of Africa. We may think that nothing will happen. No, it can't. It's not even about Tinubu. It's not even about the Senate. It's about the international press. It's about the press in Nigeria. So no matter how they want to do it, Obasina came out to deny that it didn't happen. But I watched an interview a couple of years back from Honorable Abike Dabiri, and she says that, listen, the bribe for the third-term agenda was not even via transfer. They were bringing raw cash to legislators to make sure that it happened. Atiku Abubakar also didn't deny the fact that there were rumors of the third-term agenda from the former president. So it's not going to happen in Nigeria.
I can go by what Abike Dabiri said, but I'm not sure I can go by what Atiku Abubakar said. I'm not saying this because I have anything. But you see, when it comes to core politicians, you have to be a bit skeptical about what they say. Perhaps, he was You know, he worked under OBJ.
And he
at
was
the
also
time.
nursing an
An
ambition to succeed
exactly.
OBJ.
So
So that could have been the need for him to say, no, third time cannot work.
Exactly. So I'm actually being very careful about that. But the thing is that these trends, you know, we actually see in Nigeria as well. Where, and we've talked about it, even yesterday we talked about it, day before yesterday we talked about it, where the leaders are bringing their children into leadership, you know, not by the choice of Nigerians, but by their own choice, because they believe that this stake is ours, you know, and
So even if they
we're
cannot
not going to
officially get
relinquish.
third term, my son
Exactly.
can do third term in proxy.
Exactly. So we need, you see, I just think we need to change our mindset. We need to become more civil, and you know, we need to you know, gather finesse such that we do the right, we know the right. Look, like we all know what is right and what is wrong.
Sure.
And let me tell you something. Something in you will tell you when you're doing the wrong thing. You know, so we know what is right to do. Why don't we just do it? It's an African trend, and I just think it's power, the love of power. You know, being able to dictate, being able to call the shots, being able to have people looking up to you, worshiping you, being able to have sycophants, you know, being able to just do what you want, how you want, and when you want it. But you see, all of these things must come with discipline. I believe that people who lead responsibly, with integrity, with accountability and transparency, you don't need to force yourself to come back. If the people are pleased, if they are happy with what you have served them, they will ask for more. So what is most important for me, what is key, is that they have to listen
To the people.
to the people, feel their pulse. How does it beat? Do you understand? Which way is it beating? What is the rhythm of the pulse? Let's see how we can move according to that rhythm. Let's make them happy. And I know that if Nigerians are happy, yeah, our president would not need to put in too much effort. You would already hear people singing his praises, talking about him, asking for him to come. I remember the late Yaradua. He wasn't able to do much, but a lot of people, you know, in the little time that he was able to function, you could feel that a change had come, you know, and unfortunately, he had to leave, and then everything went haywire.
You know, the problem with leadership here and the other part of the world is how we take power. So, a typical African leader thinks that with power, he can give or take life. He can call the shots. He can control the people. He can maneuver the people. He can, you know, intimidate the people. He can oppress and suppress the people. But a typical, maybe non-African leader will think that, oh, power is an opportunity for me to make changes. So they're not even ready to spend so much time. You see leaders in other countries, every little investigation or allegations against them, they are resigning. They're walking away. Because they feel like, listen, it's a privilege for me to be here. I don't have to be here for the rest of my life. I don't have to serve, except you're a monarch. And if you look at the countries, look at the Emirates, for instance. I mean, that is a paradise that grew from the desert. And the leadership have made it clear that, listen, the oil that we have in this country is for the people.
I'm telling you.
If you look at the books that I've read about the leaders of the Emirates,
It's not even about the books. It's about the experience
Exactly.
that I have
witnessed,
witnessed,
you felt.
that I felt. You know, in the evenings, that's when you see the women come out. You know, fresh. Their skin like glass. They're not working this, you know, they're not struggling like you and I. No.
They don't drive Korokwe.
They're just spending the money.
Because the
They
money is
just
there
come
for them
out
to
in the
spend.
evening and they just go shopping. That's all they do. I'm telling you, they just go shopping. they spend the money because they have money. The children they have the money. Their husbands have the money.
And the
Everybody's
government and the system also provides for them.
yes. No, I'm saying that the government, for every child that is born,
Yes.
you have
You have
some
money.
of the oil money.
Yes, because it's your entitlement.
It's the
The fact that
entitlement.
you were born in Kuwait or you were born in Bahrain means that you were born in luxury and you shouldn't suffer. So that's the difference. The leaders we have here feel like they must amass so much wealth that generations and generation and generation unborn will not suffer, in quotes. But that's the difference. So I would always tell people that sometimes it is not even the type of government that really matters. It is the people operating that type of government. I'm not, and I would never ever been a fan of the military, even though I didn't see so much of same. I've read history. I've had conversation with people, that saw firsthand a military experience in this country. But sometimes when you look at countries where one man has been making decisions, but things are looking good. A couple of my friends went to the last African Cup of Nations in Morocco, and they were telling me that, okay, if you had come to Morocco, from Morocco, you'll be cursing Nigerian government. Morocco is an African country.
Yeah, yeah.
Morocco don't have 1/10 of the natural resources that we have in this country.
True.
Morocco have arenas. They have a lifestyle. I was in Egypt in 2022. There are cities in Egypt where they are automated cities. And those are even the cities where the mid-income earners in Egypt are living. But look at what happens in this country. And these countries are African countries. They don't even have the resources that we have. Nigeria have give and take about 42 natural resources in this country. What are we using these monies for? So leadership...
What are we using the money for?
Yes.
The people, the high and mighty are the ones,
1% of the 1%.
yes, now they're the ones that are using the money. They're the ones that own these blocks, They're the ones that are controlling the mining, the mining industry. They are the powers that be that Dele Alake spoke about. Didn't you hear when he said that that there are some strong men in this, and that he's been threatened. His life is at stake. This is what is happening.
Sometimes when you find yourself in the midst of this 1% of the 1%, and they are not all politicians. Some of them are, captains of industries that have political interest, and then you see the way they talk, you see the wealth that they assume, you see how they live their lives. Then you ask yourself that even have plans for Nigerians at all. Like, do you think Nigerians should thrive? Do you think they should survive? So when we question the quality of leadership that we have in Africa, it's a reflection of a sit-tight mentality of African leaders that if I leave office today, will people still be worshiping me? If I leave office today, would I still enjoy the luxury of the convoys that I'm living on? If I leave office today, will people still be bowing for me? If I leave office today, if I open my door to step out in the morning, am I going to have people that I want to distribute monies to? If I leave office today, will people still be calling me Rankadede? Will still people be saying Baba Kepe to me? So when you have leaders with that mindset, they're not going anywhere. The people will suffer. The leaders themselves will suffer. I've seen politicians in this country where they are struggling with their health, almost at the point of death. They are still saying that you will not win that election. And I'm like, wait a minute, man. Do you even know whether you will see tomorrow with this condition you are? I'm going to interview a politician in this country. Now it's late. That after 1 hour conversation, when I got back to the office, I couldn't get up to 10-minute report from a 1 hour interview because there was so much inconsistency in the answers he was giving to the questions I was asking. But this same person at that time still wanted to be governor.
And it happened in Ondo State as well. Akeredolu.
Akeredolu was, for over a year, they didn't know where he was. But at the end of the day, you cannot cheat nature. When Obasanjo brought in the late Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, I remember that scenario when they were campaigning, and Obasanjo had to call Yar'Adua on phone on campaign, and I say, Umaru, they say you are dead. You remember that scenario?
I remember.
At the end of the day, you cannot hide it. The likes of Ngozi Obiosikwesili came out to say that, tell us the true nature of the health of this man. This country is too big to be playing politics with. At the end of the day, did you know that? Segun Agagu was the governor of Ondo State. When they were carrying him with plane to go and bury, the plane still crashed.
In short,
that
was a double
tragedy.
It was a real double tragedy. And that's where Tunji died.
Yes.
Because he wanted MIC. He wanted to go himself to honor, the family yes,
of
the
the late
Agagos.
Agago. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, person wey don die
He went
still
down.
died again.
And honestly, the prophet fella, you know, back in the day, he sang it. He said, double wahala
For Daddy
for
Body
dirty body
and
and the
owner
owner
of
of
Daddy
dirty
Body.
body.
Hey,
You know,
well, let's close shop. We are finished today.
all right. I just wish that our leaders, you know, would learn that first of all, they are servants. The minute they accept that and start to focus on the service part of leadership, then they will get it right. So I think a lot of African leaders need to go back to the drawing board and look at what leadership really entails. Leadership entails service to the people, service to humanity. Once we know that, and once we put it to practice, there's no way we'll get it wrong.